Good morning. Welcome to our midweek edition of Summit. Like we always do, we have a very important and interesting discussion for you today. I am Jumoke. Michael, you're welcome. Banji.
My name is Banji Busari.
It's very interesting that President Tinubu is already talking about cutting costs of governance. I know that's what Nigerians want to hear, and that's what we have been yearning for. But on this discussion, we'll be x-raying that decision taken by the president to see how far it will work on our economy and to the well-being of Nigerians. And to discuss that with us this morning, we have our friend, a public affairs analyst and an attorney at law, Mr. Jide Ulobu, to do that with us. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
It's our pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Since the assumption of office of the current administration, May 29, the first major decision was to remove subsidy. And that actually brought a great toll on Nigerians, meaning that Nigerians have to sacrifice more in terms of what they pay for the price of fuel. And it cut across food and all of that. Inflationary trend began to rise. Now, the people were also asking, if we are asking us to tighten our belts to make more and more sacrifices, what is the government doing? Now, this decision that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has taken, it's a very welcome decision, being hailed by almost everyone, including the opposition. Of course, they're asking for more. Was it actually as a result of pressure from the people or the opposition that this government took that decision, or was it born out of what they felt, genuine concern for our people?
I want to conclude that it must have been out of the desire of the president to reach out to the people by connecting emotionally with the realities. Because when you talk about pressure, at that level, pressure could do little. Because if pressure has a role to play in Nigeria, Nigeria should be the richest country now, because people have always been agitating. And it's a good step in the right direction if he has decided to start that journey of cutting costs. And, according to what we read, cutting trips to about 60%. Now, even though some are saying that is still like a scratch on the surface, and that it should be extended to other spheres of our life. And talking about cost, when your cost outrun your inflow, you are in trouble. So let's assume now that Nigeria is the third richest country in the world, which I pray for. Then we can escalate cost. If you have 50 million naira in your bank account that belongs to you, you can take 1 million from it and just enjoy yourself. But if you have 50 million that does not belong to you, that you have borrowed, and you take 45 million out of it just to enjoy yourself, you know what that means. And that is the case of Nigeria. Nigeria is owing so much. Nigeria is confronted by different kinds of economic hardships. And the citizens are not comfortable that, okay, we are asked to bear the brunt of this hardship. And yet, on the other side of leadership, the flamboyance has not been tamed, luxurious lives, different kinds of expenditures. Let's see you also, leadership, reflect the fact that our economy is harsh. So if that has prompted that action, it's welcome. It's now to go into the ministries, departments, and agencies and see how we can really trim down. And I must say this, there are a lot of unnecessary expenses that we have within the government circles. And some have also mentioned the dualization of offices and multiplications of offices, and there are various areas to look into. And if you visit Tanzania, when John Magufuli was the president, he introduced these kind of reforms. He brought down the cost of governance, cut down on expenses, traveling with first class for government officials. In fact, when he came into office, it was the time to celebrate the independence of Tanzania, and a huge budget was already on the table, but he disallowed it and said that money should be put into reviving the health sector and providing amenities for the citizens. And that has given a new direction to Tanzania as a nation that the new leader is also pursuing. So it's the best way to go. Cost effectiveness.
All right, so
wise.
one of the challenges we've always had with leadership is issue of walking the talk. You know, it's one thing for the president to talk brilliantly and endearingly, you know, but, you know, implementing this issue of cost of governance, in your own opinion, what specific measures or strategies do you think that they can deploy to ensure that this cost of governance actually pays or reflects in the lives of Nigerians?
You know, when you cut down your expenditure, it means you have more money. You now prioritize how you spend that money. For instance, if we come to the point in Nigeria where you have constant electricity, you would have helped Nigerians up to about 65% to come out of hardship, because for many now, even in their offices, in this hot weather, they find it difficult to switch on their generators because of the cost of fuel. In fact, I know of a particular bank, they started closing at 3 p.m. as against 4 p.m. because of the cost of diesel. So the cost of production will come down if you have electricity. Life becomes more meaningful. You can plan, you can have access to energy, and cottage industries can spring up. And that's an area to look into. And that's why I'm glad that now some corrupt practices have been investigated. Who are the cabal members who do not want the energy sector to thrive in Nigeria? And that's why I'm glad we are talking to Germany and we are expected partnership. And that partnership advocacy started, I think, as far back as 2018. So why can't we, you know, establish this? And let me say this, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should look beyond the symptoms. There are people frustrating this nation, and this is how they operate. When he was sworn into office, electricity was stable, relatively. But after a while, these people go back into their evil acts. You start reading about greed. So he has to be on his toes and set smart goals and ensure implementation, which is the question you prompted. You know, Aesop, a wise man, said, after much is said and done, more is said than done. So you want to see more done now. You know, and still talking about cost, I was looking at this scandal we have right now, the Edu scandal, about 438 million for consultancy in Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. Okay, the consultancy, is it to identify the vulnerable or to know their bank accounts or to know their addresses? Or, you know, there are questions you can ask. So you don't have people within the ministry that can carry out those functions. So, and you hear billions of naira diverted. And the people, the vulnerable who are expected to benefit from the palliatives, they are neglected. And some big ones who are already comfortable are busy. So he must also fight corruption, according to Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999, as amended, that says that the state shall abolish corrupt practice and abuse of office. So these are issues. And build the health sector, you know, ensure that we actually have ease of doing business, you know, so that we can prevent investors who are leaving the country and attract foreign direct investments into the nation to help revive our economy. So by and large, I will not subscribe, and I have never subscribed to sharing money to citizens. It has never worked, and we are reading about it now. The wise man said it's better to teach a man to fish than to give him fish to eat. So touch on the basic amenities we need as a nation to have a vibrant economy. And people will begin to pick themselves up to locate within the system towards prosperity.
This decision by the federal government to actually cut down the cost of official trips, because that is what government has actually identified as one of the conduit pipes for our resources. Now, questions have actually arisen, issues are arisen out of the decision of the government. One, is this decision only about the federal government official trips, or does it actually percolate into states and local governments? And then we are also questions about, the opposition has asked, is it only about official trips that you want to cut costs? What about all phases of governance? So how do we actually look at the decision of federal government?
I mentioned that it should be a holistic approach, but he has spoken for his own capture area, presidency, where he presides. And you can only advise others, because the governors of the state will tell you they run their own budget, they have their, we have a presidential system of government, so that they run their own system, even though they get funds from the federation account. Then the local government funding is tied to that of the state. But there's this concept of modeling, so people can emulate and say that, okay, we want to cut down on cost. And like I have said, there are many things we do that are unnecessary. The flamboyant lifestyle in government, and that is why some will remain desperate not to leave office. You see, I like to make reference to the UK, where the Prime Minister, resigned. That was when his Brexit position did not fly, Cameron. He resigned. Nobody pushed him out of office. You can imagine. Why did he resign? Because he was not likely to lose anything about his ego and things like that out of office. But the difference between being a sitting senator in Nigeria and the fleet of vehicles that follow you around. And when you are out of that office, you need to calculate the pump price of petrol before you start moving around. So we need to look at our governance style. Is it about status? Is it about service? It's very important. And even God says in his word that let all things be done decently and in order, and let your moderation be known unto all men. So we need to bring moderation into all these things.
But isn't it time that the Orosanyes reports on the margin of ministries, departments, and agencies be actually implemented? If federal government really wants to go the whole hog, is it just about official trips? Isn't it time that they really look at the redundancy and the lack of productivity across all these ministries, departments, and agencies?
Great question there. I just came up with a theory called productivity quotient, and I think that comes in. But the hindrance I see here is political considerations. Some are advocating that ministries should be merged and everything. So where do you put all the political supporters? That's a critical issue.
Special advisors.
Exactly. And so it's now left for the president to now say, hey, we need to deliver to the people. Because even a present federal minister, senior advocate of Nigeria, Festus Keyamo, said that the Minister of State office may not be relevant. Because you have a substantive minister. Why do you have a Minister of State? And you now talk about different personal assistants, seniors, personal, special assistants, at the cost of the citizens' resources. Let's put it that way. And there is nothing wrong with a rich man living flamboyantly, but everything is wrong with a poor man living flamboyantly. Nigeria is poor, not in terms of resources, but in terms of our indebtedness. So we are just trying to impress. And who can be impressed? And when you are in a hole, the best you can do is start filling that hole and getting outside. You don't dig it deeper. So let's assume now that we refine our crude, we don't allow illegal miners to mine our gold, we have maximized our resources, and we've come to where we were early 70s when the former head of state, General Gowon, said we didn't know what to do with money because we were there at the time. You remember the oil boom and everything, that, okay, we have this money, so let's spend it. I'm in support of it, spend it. Money is meant to be spent. But when you've gone borrowing so much, you are in serious economic crisis, you need to be careful. One of the things we learned in wealth management is that if your outflow outweighs your inflow, you are in trouble. And there's a difference between asset and liability. Whatever brings money into your account is an asset. Whatever draws money out of your account is a liability. So when your liability outruns your assets, you are in serious trouble. And Nigeria is in serious trouble right now.
Our president cannot be said to lack courage to take some bold decisions. Are you saying the margin of the ministries it's beyond the president's clout or decision?
It's not beyond him. If you look at Section 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, he is empowered to execute executive powers. And that is why he is the one to appoint the ministers, send them their nominations to the National Assembly for screening and confirmation. He has enormous power as the executive president of Nigeria, but it's up to him what he wishes to do. After all, on the first day of coming into office, he said subsidy is gone. And no one has
That's
changed.
some measure of courage.
Not beyond courage. The Bible says where the word of a king is, there's authority. He has an enormous power to turn things around. So,
okay, let's look at the implications of even some of these decisions. We are security situation in the country. I'm told that a senator in Nigeria goes about with an average of about 8 security men. Now, that's a lot of cost. Now, can you actually compromise where your safety is actually involved? I mean, you want to cut costs, but here is insecurity looking at you in the face. So how do we actually look at this holistically? I mean, talking about insecurity in the land.
You see, where there is poverty, crises are inevitable. So it's because we are yet to attain good governance. I doubt if the lawmakers in the UK go around with 7 security officers. No. In Sweden, you may be shocked to see the Prime Minister in Netherlands on a bicycle, enjoying himself. So it's because of the kind of society we have created. And where there is a wide margin between the wealthy and the poor, it's a breeding ground for crime. You see, so what we should start doing now is to try and stabilize the nation and make it a nation that serves the majority and not the minority. And you can look at Section 15 and Section 16 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that even stipulates that the economy should be managed in a way that wealth is not concentrated in the hands of a few. You see, so for this, and that is what I said earlier. So when a senator is in office and he has 8 security details to follow him around, when he leaves office, how does he sustain that security apparatus? You see? So these are issues. So we start talking about armored vehicles and things like that. In a free, I was in Dubai on vacation with my wife. We flew in from London, and it's amazing when you get to the gold suit in Dubai, a big gold market. You wondered how have they achieved this with security. You know, in the night, you see people, the lights, you know, people still doing business. You only know it's night because your eyes are telling you that you should be in bed by now. So, and that is why wealth is being attracted into that region. And what we have in Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended is that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. But now, when the leaders need so much to secure themselves and the citizens are left to their self-help, it's a reverse of the ideal. You see, but I have also always said that the insecurity of one is the insecurity of all. If you are harnessing state resources to secure yourself today, you will leave office one day. It's only God that will not leave office. So you are coming back to this larger society. You know, so the best thing to do when you are there and you have the opportunity is to rise up and ensure that you facilitate security in the land through your office. And again, let me say this, when we keep searching for sponsors of terrorism and crime and banditry in the country, when people have stolen so much money, what will they do with the money? Than to divert their attention and cause crisis across the nation. So the government has a lot to do decisively to ensure that the ideal situation is restored to the nation. It may not be an immediate thing, but a gradual thing. But let's start moving in that direction. And from what we are seeing now, a minister being suspended to facilitate effective investigation. And if these things are done thoroughly and those who should be prosecuted are prosecuted and the appropriate sanctions rolled out, then you send signals to the people that, hey, we need to put this nation on the right course. Because I read something this morning that worried me, which says that the number of people waiting to go in and steal
is greater than
those
it's greater than those already stealing.
Yeah, that's even the next question I want to ask, because as laudable as all this sounds, should the presidency expect pushbacks from public service, civil service, politicians themselves? Should they expect it?
Absolutely. You know, when Nehemiah returned to build the wall of Jerusalem, the men at home did not build the wall. They were looking at it down. When Nehemiah came, the Shambalat and Tobiah, they rose up to say no. But Nehemiah set men with bows and arrows that, see anybody you fire. So this is the tenure of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I want to see the Jagaban in him. Because if he allows them, they will mess up his tenure. And I've said this over the years. The historians cannot be arrested. They are busy documenting. Everything that happened under the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, they are there. Documented. You see, so this is his own opportunity now. So if they are fighting back, you have the executive power to also make sure you win the fight.
Audacity.
All the ministries and departments and agencies are under his control. We have over 40 law enforcement agencies in Nigeria. And let him learn from the UK. You saw the case of Ekweremadu. The UK didn't waste time with that matter. 6 weeks, they were through. And they came to a verdict. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo wrote a letter, they ignored it. ECOWAS sent they ignored it, that no, the rule of law must prevail. We have prosecuted, we have found this man guilty, so shall it be. The same thing happened to the former governor of Delta State. So when it's all about recovery money and there are no sanctions, absolutely they will not be afraid. You know.
I'm curious, I need to actually know, get your opinion on whether or not just a mere proclamation by the president is enough to actually go the whole hog as far as cutting the cost of governance. People are suggesting that, well, you really need to go, that he really needs to go much deeper. I mean, to put in place restructuring. So, I mean, I'm looking at the constitutionality of these decisions. You spoke earlier on that the state governors may not necessarily align with that decision. So do you not think that restructuring is actually the way to go to ensure that it is it's global, that is not just necessarily at the federal level?
I think culture is deeper than restructuring.
Culture.
Yes. If you now say, if we even say now that, okay, Nigeria is divided into local government, that let local government be fully autonomous. That even there are no states again. So we have 774 government regions in Nigeria. The culture of corruption that's already there will still manifest. So let's start first by implementing Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. You may not be bothered about the system of government in China. China has raised millionaires. China is productive. China has almost zero tolerance for corruption, which we know. Even they follow their citizens outside the country to ensure they are citizens too. But if you bring them in and you want to corrupt what they produce for you, they allow you. You see, so we must start with that orientation and know that everyone will eventually become victims of corruption. You read in newspapers, one former local government chairman kidnapped, one former senator's family members kidnapped. It goes around. You don't know who is next. You don't know who is next. So, and that is why when we talk about this restructuring, what have we not, what sector of our national life now are we likely not to find corruption? So let's start first by saying no to corruption. Some will argue that corruption is not a problem. I wish them the best, but it's obvious now. Look at when the case of Mitv started. People brought in the issue of tribalism and different kinds of sentiments. But we are reading now, we are seeing what has been done. You see, I think $1 is about 1,300 naira now. You see, so
that's scary.
The general inflation is about 29.2%. Food inflation is about 33.4%. You see, so what's our total indebtedness and all this? So when you look at this, you know, what percentage of the citizens are under the multifaceted poverty window? So these are issues. And the essence of succession is to improve on the good that has been done before. And so the assignment basically is to enhance the fortunes of the citizens. So all the policies must be driven towards making lives more meaningful for the citizens. Right now,
short-term and long-term.
Exactly. Go to the marketplace is tough. And I must commend the rebates on transportation that was rolled out, you know, in December, you know, some for free. And I want to again speak against this palliative mentality. We can see now that this money never gets to the beneficiaries. And
Or the supposed beneficiaries.
yes, you know, and you know, two men invited me to breakfast, a general and an ambassador, and I couldn't join them for the breakfast because I was fasting, and they were discussing the reason for corruption. And I said that it is not he who has little that is poor, but he that is never satisfied. Because I don't know what people want to do with all those billions and billions and billions, except maybe to sponsor terrorism and oppress people and occupy offices that, you know, will continue to fuel their luxurious living. But when you deny the people what they should enjoy, you are actually eating their flesh and drinking their blood. You know, and if man does not bring you to reckoning, God will.
Okay, so in your closing remarks, sir, so even to us that are beneficiaries of the corruption, that is the populace, some people are also benefiting. Those who are actually suffering or going through hardship are also urging those relatives in government to continue because eventually the largest will come to them. So what's your advice to all of us?
There are two ways to live, one strategic, the other by default. And default means if we continue that way, we are mortgaging the future. Strategy means if we change our ways, we are securing the future. Because the Bible says stolen food is sweet to the mouth, but at the end it leaves gravel in the mouth. So let's be wise. Let's do what is best. Let the commonwealth of this nation be for the common good of the nation. God has blessed us overwhelmingly, and we cannot blame him for deciding to be poor. Wealth and poverty are choices that you can make. So
thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us for this conversation.
thank you. God bless Nigeria.
We move now to the next segment of Summit, where we showcase how well the administration of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is doing in Lagos State. I am Jumoke Michael. See you again.
That's our package today. If it has impacted you, go ahead and tell others about Summit. My name is Banji Busari. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
Lagos State Governor Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on the 15th of December 2023, commissioned a residential estate